Let's say you buy a house in paradise and you're thinking everything's gonna go perfect. I love it. It's fantastic. And you build it. And it has a big pool and an amazing kitchen. Maybe you're like us and you put an apartment on top. That's pretty cool, right? So you're living in it, you're on vacation, you're having a great day, you are enjoying time with your family, and somebody says, here is your electrical bill. And you open it up and you see that it is hundreds of dollars more than it was the month before. Well, this happens all the time in Merida, Mexico, especially when you're talking about people like me who want to have air conditioning, electronics, all kinds of modern age stuff that is just fun in the sun and having a good time. Well, the reason for that is that the CFE, the organization that controls the electricity in Mexico, that utility has a scheme, has a tiered system, and actually a penalized system if you go above the stated amount. Now, this normally isn't a big deal. If you use more, you should pay more. That makes all the sense in the world. But the peers are a little bit different. If you use over a certain amount, you pay a penalty. If you use over a certain amount, you pay a bad penalty. So we're going to talk about that in this video, and why also solar panels can come to save the day. My name is Alexander Howell, and let's roll the intro. So a little bit of background about myself might be a little helpful for those of you who are new to the channel. And if you are new to the channel and you like topics like Mexico and travel and international real estate or real estate in general, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button and the notification bell, because that notification bell is really important. It lets you know anytime that one of these videos goes live or I live stream, which now that I'm over my pollen allergy, now that it about killed me for 3 weeks, I can actually wear contacts and talk. So I will be producing more videos to try to make up for that loss. Apologies to those of you who already subscribed. But again, my name is Alexander Howell. My family and I traveled to Merida, Mexico for the first time about 2 years ago, and we fell in love with the area. We actually fell in love with the city, even though we were staying on the beach. Merida is about 30 minutes inland from the Gulf of Mexico, and there's a few really cool beach towns out there. We stayed in a small town called Guaymatún, but there's Progreso, Chicxulub, Chelem, Telchac Puerto. There are tons of places in this wonderful state of Yucatan in the country of Mexico that you can stay. We chose the inland colonial town of Merida, Mexico, which has about 1 million people in it. Now, the real estate prices continue to go up, as they do pretty much everywhere in the world, it seems right now. But before this happened 2 years ago, we ended up buying, after being there for 2.5 weeks, an amazing property that's about 30 feet wide by 182 foot long. Now, the city is actually very green. There are tons of parks, but when you're walking through it, you're going to kind of think that you're in a concrete jungle. The reason is that even though it's a concrete facade, sidewalk, concrete street, and the like, most of the greenery is behind that facade, and that is the exact same thing that we have done. So we renovated this house far bigger than we actually wanted to. When people ask me, like, what can you get into a house in Mexico for? Under $100,000 easily. What did we do? Went way over, and that video, by the way, is coming, but I have to go to Mexico in June to July to actually make it, so you guys can see the finished product. But this video is about energy. It's actually about the electricity that you consume in Mexico, and so that's what we're going to stick to from now on. So the CFE is the utility company that runs throughout all of Mexico, and they determine the prices that you pay. Now, what I'm going to tell you is go to www.cfe.mx to get all of the information that we're talking about today. And the reason that I say that is that when I was making notes for this particular video, I realized that month to month, the prices change. It might be up to 75 kilowatts. You're in the lowest price range, and then you go into the intermediate range, and then you pay a little bit more for certain kilowatts, and then you go into the surplus range and you pay even more. So the more you use, the more you pay. But it's kind of like the US tax system. If you're in a certain bracket, you only pay this much tax. And then once you go over that, you pay all of that first level and then all of the next level until you get to your amount. Now, most of this is completely fine. If you're in a situation where you just use a lot more, okay, that can be completely fine. But then there is the DAC. And this is one of those things where they talk about the death knell of something. That's pretty much it, because it's tough to get into it because you have to use a lot of electricity, but it's also very tough to get back out of it. Now, there are ways to work with the CFE and say, hey, I've actually lowered my energy usage, I've done this, I've done that, and you can, but it is very difficult. Notoriously difficult is probably the right way to put it. And those rates are also on www.cfe.mx. And the reason I'm giving you the website is they do change, and they change month to month. And if they all of a sudden decide to do something different next month, I don't want to lead you astray by giving you false numbers, or if you're watching this video a year after it was produced, I don't want the numbers to be wrong for you. If I say June, it might mean June 2022, not June 2023. But as of this video, and from what I could determine, and please feel free to fact check me on this, Merida was in the 1B level of the DAC on its current table, which from my understanding, and please feel free to comment down below if I'm incorrect about this, but that means that if you use over 400 kilowatt hours of power per month, you will find yourself in this terrible situation where you have to pay a lot more for power. And not only do you have to pay a lot more for power, but you're paying for it without the subsidy that the CFE gives you, or the Mexican government gives you. Now, what does that mean? Well, you might find yourself, if you are living in Mexico or renting for a long period of time, finding out that in the hottest months, the bills actually aren't that bad. Now, they're high, they can be very high, but if you kind of stay within a certain range, the bills are gonna be fairly odd because you're using a lot more energy for air conditioning or whatever it might be, but they're okay. And that is because Mexico actually has a subsidy with the CFE that lowers your bills at that point. However, if you find yourself in the dreaded DAC, what you are going to find out is that you no longer qualify for that subsidy. So you're paying the entirety of the bill, and it is kind of crazy. Now, one of the people that worked with us in real estate in the very beginning, who was showing us the houses with Elizabeth Rodriguez's team from Yucatan Beach and City Property, he was telling me a story about the fact that his bill was something around 5 pesos. Not very much at all for the month. He had solar panels on his property, but he also said that he runs air conditioning, has a smaller house, and watches television a lot. All of these things are completely fine, but 5 pesos is so very little that it actually feels free. I don't want to offend anybody by saying that, but I think we all know what I'm talking about. If you're paying 5 pesos a month for energy, you're probably doing very well. However, I have heard people talk about that on multiple forums about living in Merida, Mexico, which, by the way, I'm using Merida, Mexico as the example because that is what I'm familiar with and where we purchased. I'm not trying to say that this is so much different than anywhere else, but I'm giving you my example from the place that we live, and especially because in the state of Yucatan, it gets ludicrously hot. Just look up the average temperature per month from Merida, Mexico, and the Yucatan state in general, and you are going to find near scorching temperatures. Now, I'm completely fine with that because I don't mind sweating, and I know that in the middle of the day, I'm gonna stay inside and cool down. But it's also a good example because air conditioning is one of the #1 ways that you can get yourself in trouble if you are using too much power, which air conditioners draw a lot of. But there have been nightmare stories on some of these forums where you will see somebody, and just follow them, go on Facebook, type Merida, Mexico, you're gonna see this happen quite a bit, where somebody says, my bill was about $20 on average per month, and all of a sudden I paid $400. And that's because not only did they go to the top stack, that surplus amount of energy, but then they got basically taxed with the DAC issue, which means that no subsidy, more penalty, lots of money. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. Well, so what's the best way to handle this if you can? Now, my wife and I knew from the very beginning that we were going to do this. We were a little concerned about what the price might be. We shouldn't have been, but we were a little bit concerned about what the price might be. But the #1 way that we have talked to people about combating this issue is by utilizing solar panels on your home. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy about solar panels. I'm not getting into the politics of it. What I'm saying is that it is one of the most effective ways to lower your bill, thanks to net metering and thanks to the immediate use that you may have if you have solar panels and you have power running through your home. It's going to utilize that as opposed to anything else. And by the way, in Merida, when the sun goes down, it goes from a, let's say, little bit more than balmy 95 plus to a very cool and wonderful 70 to 75 degrees. And these are, of course, Fahrenheit, even though some people that have been in Merida might think that those are in Celsius as well. But that drop in temperature actually means that when the sun is not out and those solar panels aren't functioning, you don't necessarily need a battery backup because the temperature outside is just fine. You open up some windows, you get a cool breeze, you're good to go. And if you're worried about bugs and stuff like that, there are tons of ways to keep them out, screens, that kind of thing. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? The other positive thing for houses in Merida, and this is houses in a lot of different places, but especially Merida, that concrete that I was talking about earlier, it is incredibly thick. It absorbs the heat during the day and it filters it in a little bit at night. You're not gonna be crazy hot at night by any stretch of the imagination, but you are going to be shielded from from the worst part of the day. The other thing is the way that your house is set up. One of the most important things that I learned in this entire process was how you can utilize different things, and especially when it comes to the way that your home is set up, to make sure that you get the benefit of all things. So here's a little bit of story about our home. So our home faces north to south, has very thick concrete walls. The master bedroom, where we will be obviously sleeping and hanging out a lot, is in the very back of the property, 180 something feet back from the front door. It faces north, so when the sun goes up, we don't even see it. Our room is in shade all day long. On top of that, we have a patio that has an overhang. Overhangs are your friend. That's especially true with the main part of the house, which is 2 levels. Now, our house has an apartment on top because we have family that come down all the time. We wanted to give them their own living space, so we built an apartment on top, and Henry suggested, our architect, by the way, Henry Ponce, who is absolutely amazing, he suggested having these long patios, which we thought, great, more space to entertain, but he also covered them, which allows for very little light to get into a bedroom or the kitchen or living room, whatever it might be, because the sun is only going to go so low over top of the house. Because of that, it covers a significant amount of real estate without using anything but bamboo and concrete and iron. There's that too. The rest of the house is very simple. It's kind of tucked away. A couple of bedrooms that are just off the courtyard. They're in shade all the time, concrete surrounded. The very front of the house faces directly north, so it doesn't get any incoming sunlight as well, similar to the master bedroom in the back. Utilizing this on top of different airways, different venting, things like that, things that you can open to allow air to come in and exit very quickly that create breezes. This allows you to basically be able to function without air conditioning and still have a semi-cool home. The concrete is also one of the biggest things. These are thick concrete walls. The sun hits them, it doesn't go through immediately. Now, the sun might be absorbed throughout the day, dispersed a little bit at night, but at that point, the temperature is 70, 75 degrees outside, and it is nice and cool. You always feel very comfortable no matter what you're doing. Now, the moment that you step outside, it might feel like you're stepping onto the surface of the sun, but when you are in the actual home, it's okay. Now, obviously, I like having a cool home, so during the day, it will get a little warm. It is still 95 outside. There are still large windows, things that allow for heat to come in. And that is what the air conditioner can be used for. But if your house is set up properly, everything else should be fine. Utilizing that on top of LED lights and things of this nature basically allow you to do the first thing you should do before you consider any alternative energy source, and that is reduce the amount that you consume. By reducing the amount that you consume, you reduce the price of the solar system, because that solar system is just there to balance everything out so that your bill hopefully goes to zero. Now, using Energy Star appliances as well, that can help. I'm sure there are 1,000 things like timed lights, timing your television, all that kind of stuff. All of those things can reduce what you need, and then we talk about the fun stuff, and that's getting solar panels. Now, I will tell you that our solar panels are huge. They're about 7 feet long, 540 watt panels, and there are 12 of them, and all the installation and every other component that you need to get them in there. Now, we had a couple of people come and look at it, but we eventually went with Henry's guy, which is not a big surprise. He knew what he was doing. But there are several solar companies that are down in Merida. I would just say look them up, because even though ours is good, we haven't really turned them on to use them for our purposes. We're going to do that very soon. We just haven't yet, so I don't want to say too much. But as far as the cost is concerned, I can tell you that. Now, I can tell you that 12 panels, all the components, installation, everything in Missouri for what we were looking for, it's going to be $20,000 to $25,000, and I think in some ways that's going to be on the low end. However, down here in Merida, Mexico, or down in Merida, Mexico, I shouldn't say down here, but in Merida, we paid less than $9,000. I think it was just about $8,900 to have those 12 panels installed. And again, the biggest positive for that is, and no politics or anything like that, but the biggest positive for that is that if you used all the air conditioners, all the TVs, everything like that, and you got pushed into the top surplus area of the CFE, or God forbid you got put into the DAC where you're using energy like crazy and you're getting penalized for it, no subsidy for it, nothing like that, you're going to be paying a couple $100 a month. And if you have solar panels, it's going to reduce that drastically, basically meaning that if you got into the DAC and couldn't get out of it, solar panels might be paid off in 24 months or so, depending on how bad your situation actually was. One thing I will say, and I've seen this article floating around a couple of times, and I can't remember if it's from Yucatan magazine or one of the other online publications, but I have seen that CFE is looking to reduce and or stop, and don't sue me for libel here. I'm saying that I can't remember exactly what it was, but they are looking to reduce the amount of solar panel installations that there are across the country. Now, obviously, I feel very lucky that that has not been the case with us, but it is definitely something to think about if you see that article and think, I've been thinking about solar, but I don't know if I want to. Now might be the time to go ahead and do it. And again, I will post that link below so that you guys can have it. I'll look it up afterwards. I have it in my notes, but I can't find that particular page, so my apologies for that. It'll be in the notes down below. But this is an actual big concern because it sounds like it's just somebody trying to roughshod their way into making sure that you pay as much as you possibly can for power. That's not necessarily the case though, and it's actually something that the United States and several other countries are dealing with right now. You see, when you have an increase in use of electricity, and this isn't just air conditioning, this is the internet, this is electric cars, this is everything that we do in society right now, we are constantly putting more and more pressure on the grid, and in many cases, the grid is not built for that much use. When you think about net metering, it's a positive thing. You enjoy the solar that you're getting for you to reduce your prices, but then when you're not doing anything, it gets sent back to the power company, they get to utilize it for other purposes, and you get paid money for it, right? Sounds like a positive. However, that type of transference is not what most infrastructure was built for originally. So we're utilizing old infrastructure with no real ability to fix it very quickly for an increasingly electrical world. So the lesson in that is just that not everything's diabolical. If they try to shut things down, it might not always be because it's negative, but it's something to look into for sure. Now, for my 2 cents, I think that it should without question be something that we utilize on a consistent and constant basis, and that governments should and have a responsibility to protect their citizens and therefore work on making sure that we have a sufficient grid for all of these uses that we currently find. But as I've said in many videos, I can say that all day long about the United States of America, but I'm going to shut the you-know-what up when it comes to Mexico, because even though we are looking to apply for temporary residency, I'm not a resident yet, nor am I a citizen, and another country's government, not my job to say anything about. But there is a concern with the grid. I would present that to you, and it's something we'll have to deal with. But overall, what I'll say is this, and this is to sum up the entirety of the video. Power can become incredibly expensive, especially when you start thinking about adding on air conditioning, Wi-Fi, television sets, lighting, everything else. You need to reduce the amount that you use by automating, by using LED lights, which draw far less power if you can do that, by turning off air conditioners when you're not in that room, because why would you want to pay for that anyway? But doing all of those things to save the planet, as we all say that we try to. But even if you get to that point, let's be honest, there are going to be things that you want to use. I'm an air conditioning guy. I'm a tech guy. I like my things, but I understand that if I'm in the media room or if I'm in the kitchen, I don't need to power everything else. But when I do want to do that and I want to reduce my bill and I want to make sure that I'm not paying for something that is so crazy above and beyond what I thought it could be, well, that's a time to look at solar. And especially in Yucatan, where again, we pay less than $9,000 for solar, seems like a good idea. I hope you enjoyed the video. And again, guys, my name is Alexander Howell. I really do honestly hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to text me. I'll send you the exact price and stuff like that. I'll send you the type of panels that we have. All you have to do, go to alexanderhowell.com, hit contact us, and that just sends me a direct email. There's no like mailing list. I think I track it, but there's no random stuff that you have to sign up for. But if you have questions like that are long form, send it to me via email. If you have a short question, like what do you think about solar, something like that, send it to my text number. It's 816-727-7740, and I'm happy to go back and forth with you. Give me some time. It does take a little bit. A lot of you guys are texting me and emailing me now, so I'm a little bit more delayed than I used to be, but obviously it can be a positive thing. You can also follow me on Instagram. I post a ton of pictures, especially of the updates of our house in Mexico, in Merida, which we are so close to getting done. I can't believe we're going to be down in June and it's going to be a finished product. But at Instagram and every other social media, Twitter, TikTok, I know TikTok's kind of the crazy kid thing, but I'm going to try to get like short form content where I can just give you guys some like short tips and stuff like that. So if you want to follow me on TikTok or Instagram or any of those others, at Alexander from KC, at Alexander from KC, like Kansas City. So at Alexander from KC, that's where I am. And you can see some cool pictures and maybe some cool TikToks. Forgive me for my TikToks. I don't really know what I'm doing there. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again just to say thank you. The quickest, easiest, cheapest, freest thing that you can do is hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and of course hit that notification bell. And I do try to get into live streaming. I am so sorry. It has been 3 weeks since I posted a video on here. I meant to get this video out last week, but then I had no voice. You can probably tell my voice is different than the other videos. I am severely allergic to pollen, and it is raining pollen up in Kansas City and Lake of the Ozarks. So I have been laid low. I've felt sick every single day for 3 weeks. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's been fun. Thank you so much. If you have a question for me, I forgot to say, comment down below. And as always,